But Fridged, uh, sleeving up Birth from Cragraven versus his opponent, uh, Frexerik running Dimid, mulliganing down to 6, keeping that hand. So Fridge does flip for the play. Starts with a Sapphire Shard, completely typical for a deck that runs a Sapphire Charge Power. I drew that out a little longer than I probably needed to. Well, anyway, Diamond for Fridged. For Frexerik, they both start with F. I'm going to mix them up the entire time. No turn one plays for either. A second Sapphire Shard for Fridge. Now, given you don't see the hand, this could be another robot aggro deck. It could be a mono Sapphire deck. It could be some ridiculous brew. But we do see a tunneled troop, a tunneled Reese, in fact. Given the lack of turn one robot plays, though, I think there's a slight hint at what kind of deck we're facing. Welcome back, Fantachills.
Not a problem. It's certainly possible that the lack of a turn one robot play has tipped the scale of what deck he's running, but you could never really be sure if you're in Frexerik's position right now. Who has played down a Soul Marble, which is pretty much a fantastic turn 2 play when your opponent only has a tunneled troop underground.
At the moment, it looks like we're seeing, I mean, with that Mirror Knight, it's fairly clear that this is likely not Robot Aggro. Robot Aggro doesn't really benefit from a Cerulean Mirror Knight, so possibly Mono Sapphire versus Blood Diamond.
Yeah, the two powerhouses of a meta at the moment.
That's the main deck Meek.
Yeah, and it comes out, shuts down that alternate art Mirror Knight as soon as possible, which will reduce the amount of synergy that Fridge can get out of that right now. But it doesn't matter when all you have in your hand, all day, every day, is more Cerulean Mirror Knights. Had that Meek not come out, this would have been an incredibly impressive turn 3. 3 Cerulean Mirror Knights on the board. A little bit interesting that Fridge is choosing to run one alternate art, probably two if we think about it logically, versus 2 regular Cerulean Mirror Knights.
I mean, you got to run with the swag you have, or some people like the art on both. So wanting to have both arts is also an option. But if I had 4, I would play 4. So I agree with you there.
I assume strongly it's because he doesn't have the 4, but at the same time, there is some logistics to holding back and just playing all 4 of the same art. Now that Solitary Exile comes out, but it looks like it boxes the uninspired Cerulean Mirror Knight, which is interesting.
It was the one on the right. I assume it's the inspired one. There's no benefit to boxing the uninspired one. So
okay, it might have just been it might have just been my eyes not working. We do, of course, see the extinction happens and the entire game closes.
I think that was a tectonic break. But it looks like Fridge is experiencing a little bit of a technical difficulty. We'll be back with the match shortly. But yeah, although they use the same champion, a Sapphire deck with Cerulean Mirror Knight and a Sapphire deck with Bertram using robots are completely different. Extinction could be a factor from the opponent, as with Colin for last game, but Cerulean Mirror Knight has this neat property where it makes your opponent's extinctions not as valuable, as any troops you kill inspired by Cerulean Mirror Knights are drawing cards to replace them. And a lot of removal has gone into killing these Cerulean Mirror Knights. A Solitary Exile, a Meek. I'm still interested in the main deck Meek. What the decision to run?
It slows down robots. It slows down Mirror Knights. It deals with a lot of threats that are prevalent in the meta right now. It slows down aggro like Gore Feast.
Yep, it can take out a Royal Falconer, Stormcloud. Even if it needs to, takes out a Buccaneer, a early not Soul Marble, Living Totem. There's a surprising number of 2 attack and less things that Meat can destroy. So that's
And
certainly a valid question.
coming with set 3, there's an even wider range of things you'll want to be using that on. I'll be slowing down Fenteos left and right.
You can do the Meek and Pride's Fall combo.
That's
Too
true.
little attack or too great defense.
We see the
Enough
Living
terms.
Totem come out, and at the same time, on the other side of the board, Reese is surfacing. And now Fridge does have use of his charge power here, but with 3 resources open, well, with 3 resources open, his opponent could have a murder or a way of destroying Reese, but actually doesn't. And now we start to see not just bodies piling up on Fridge side of the board, but all of this is happening while he still has the Cerulean Mirror Knight on the board. So even an extinction or other board clear option here is value for him in drawing cards. On the other side of the table, however, that Soul Marble is getting closer and closer to being completed. It actually could theoretically complete itself this turn for Frexerik, which changes the level of troops he has available to him, just giving them all +2/+2 Spell Shield and Steadfast. And it looks like he's going to finish it right here.
Does he choose the immediate Soul Cavalry, or does he choose the Soul Armament?
I think in this matchup, like his only because he's gonna get overwhelmed eventually with the Soul Cavalry. I think he has to go, and we see him take the armaments here. This way, now the Living Totem could eventually get big enough uh, to deal with this board. He swings with the Living Totem, knowing the only trade Fridge has available is the Reese, but he does swing into 5 open resources there as well, which was a little bit risky.
Dangerous.
Yeah, it was very, very risky at the least. We see a Crackling Vortex come out, giving 2 more charges, to Fridged, and 1 more resource. He can use his charge power again, putting a Tectonic Mega Hulk onto the board.
It's pretty good. Before
That's
this game ends, I would like to note that had the option of playing that Vortex last turn, but didn't. Just deciding he didn't need to. Um, he didn't need to. So, in case you were wondering, it was glowing, and he can only use his charge power once per turn, so those extra charges wouldn't have gone to use.
that's true. He swings in with the Reese. Uh,
I think in Frigid Mind, Reese has done his job. He has summoned a greater power than he is.
That's true. He was willing to trade it for that Living Totem now because the worst case for Fridged here is, in fact, well, kind of happening here. A splattering of troops on the board, some life drain, the ability for most of these things to just be terrifying. Now, that being said, the most innocuous thing on the board is the Augmentation Bot, who could give a variety of really terrifying things to the Tectonic Mega Hulk.
Swift Strike, lethal.
And we do see Swift Strike is the first one applied, meaning the Tectonic Mega Hulk is far more terrifying than it could have been. And with 0 resources open, this top deck might change the game. Actually, I think that is game, isn't it?
I believe it is. Spell Shield now as well. Not the, I guess no
Just in
Solitary
case.
Exiles, no
Just in case.
Quadruple Meek isn't a thing, so destroy target troop with attack 10 or less.
Yep. So that early augmentation bot, which was likely a
Yeah.
when that was pulled, Fridge likely thought, well, at least that gets inspired by Cerulean Mirror Knight. That was probably his only care about it, but it turned out to be what he needed to close out that game that turn.
Because yeah, without that Swift Strike, those three troops are enough to jump in front of the Tectonic Mega Hulk, kill it. He's gaining health, um, and not all the things die, which means either a living totem is free to get pumped and grow bigger, or the Vampire King is there to deal to life drain more. So the Swift Strike, however, made it so that the necessary block to stop the Mega Hulk results in the death of everything blocking it. Actually don't think it kills everything blocking it, but it will certainly mean that the Mega Hulk survives to fight another day, and another day meaning the next turn to probably close out the game. But yeah, we have what looks to be a classic Shattered Destiny matchup of Mono Sapphire versus uh, Diamond Blood.
Yeah, it's two powerhouse decks kind of clashing together. Battle of the Titans here.
All right, for those of you just joining us, you are watching the FiveShards.com Ruby Cup, sponsored by Technofee. We are in round two. We are currently watching Fridge Hex versus who's his opponent? I can't read his name now. So
Fridge is playing against Frexerik.
yes, Frexerik. And we are about to enter game two. Game one ended in victory for Fridged, so looks like we are just about ready to begin.
Yeah, reserves have been pulled in, and we'll see how things go. Infamous Neo, who did drop from the tournament, still sitting in the proving grounds, clogging it up. Scumbag Neo. Now, obviously, since Fridge won the first game, he gets to let his opponent choose whether to play or draw here. Um, Likely his opponent will choose to play in the Blood Diamonds. Even Blood Diamond Control wants to be playing first in almost any case, just to try to be ahead in resources. It is the tendency with Hex decks, as that is. And we see that is the case.
Getting one card up over your opponent is strong, but having initiative tempo is a little bit stronger.
And especially when when the ways of gaining card advantage in Hex are so powerful when they work, you can generally take the risk and just try to get those things out first.
Frexerik will, yeah, he did choose to be on the play, or got it.
Looks like they are going to restart Gentleman's Agreement here. Fridged somehow got the wrong deck. Good guy Frexerik does just let the game be reset, though.
It looks like they are going to side decks. Usually, when in a tournament, like this won't be an issue when we have best of three. So this is likely going to be our last tournament where we have in between exiting proving grounds matches side decks.
It
But
had best be. It had best be the last tournament.
let's not jinx ourselves here. But one thing you can do, if for those of you listening, save your deck as a new copy of your deck with your side deck and label it that way. So for me, I would be like Hacky Tournament Deck, and then Hacky Tournament Deck SD is my copy. So I know I will always have an untouched copy for game one, and I know that the touched copy the side deck copy is distinct. Not sure if we saw it there. But
We see
just some of,
double checking that he had the right deck. He again chooses to draw.
man, sometimes you can't tell until you draw a card that you're not supposed to.
Ideally, this is the correct deck now. doesn't look upset about what he's got. So
I'd be okay. I mean, I'd be okay with this hand. Again, trying not to talk about it as this is a stream with no delay, which I like competitively. A little bit more of a liability with no hand guard, but um, yeah. I know Technophy mentioning again. Also, can't wait for Tech Best of Three. Does make it a little bit easier. Side deck interface built in, all of that. So Frexerik starting again with a diamond. We could assume that's usually because Angel of Dawns are in the deck, and if it happened to be the top card of his deck right now, not playing a diamond there would be crushing.
which is always it is like the one limiting play of the blood diamond situation, because a lot of the strong blood cards are double blood. Like there's no doubt about that. Double blood threshold is probably one of the strongest double thresholds in the game, opening up giant corpse flies, vampire kings, extinctions. So typically speaking, with a dual shard, you would want to be investing that in a blood. That being said, there's not a whole lot of double diamond comparatives. There's Highland Shinobi as a turn two play, and I mean there's some strong triple and penta diamond thresholds, but as far as those go, without without making too many vacuum comparisons, you want double blood before you want double diamond. But that single diamond is so important that sometimes you have to use a dual shard for that diamond. Uh,
And risk not getting that second blood.
yeah, and it can very drastically change an entire game all on its own. These here. Frexerik just asking for a second here by the looks of it.
Oh, we have a second. Have you noticed that there are a lot of focus on multi-sharded cards in Armies of Myth? While we're on this discussion,
Multi-sharded?
I'm not having two or more threshold. I mean,
Yeah,
not
there.
threshold.
I think that's a good way to alter the power level of a card. Like, because set 3 had to introduce some similar card mechanics while making them vastly different. Kind of like Fiery Indignation is burn, but with an upside. I mean, it isn't quick, I don't believe. But yes,
You also can't target champions.
you can't target champions with Fiery
I
Indignation?
believe it's if it's the two cost for two damage and five if you have a five cost, right?
Yeah,
That can only target troops, I believe.
that sounds correct then.
So
Um, Actually, I think if it can't target
can
I
target
think if it,
champions.
yeah, I think if it couldn't target champions, yeah, it can't. I would have been okay with that at quick, actually. I mean,
But
that's
anyway,
just a single threshold, so it's a bad example anyway.
you're looking
Um,
at a lot of the powerful cards in Army Smith, at least supposedly powerful. They have a lot of double and greater thresholds requirements.
mhm,
Anyways, looks like the game is continuing, so food for
mhm.
thought.
Certainly, the prismatic cards are heavy on thresholds, but that's just a different story. So we see the mono sapphire typical style of play here, where Frigid is kind of holding on to his options until the best time to play them, and we see him putting the storm cloud down. And in response, Frexerik is putting the counters on his soul marble, essentially saying, "Yeah, yeah, do whatever you need to here. I'm not going to kill it this turn." Um, so I wonder if because he did that prior to the storm cloud having any counters on it, if he's Frigid is just going to leave that on the board.
Yeah,
Uh,
leaving if he had left those three resources open, that murder is a possibility. So possibly may have made Fridge use it early. I
yeah,
don't think he's too concerned about that though.
yeah. Storm cloud is powerful in that any removal you draw out onto your opponent's two drop onto your own two drop is strong. We see Withering Touch hit the board.
Ah, I see. I see what just happened, and that may have been intentional by Frexerik to lull Fridge into a false sense of security. Um,
Mm,
but that is a solitary exile now used on a storm cloud. There are certainly worse things, perhaps in the near future, that could be used on.
yeah. And we will see in response now the Elder Streamer hit the board. The Withering Touch
Yeah,
did
did
do a
see
little
nothing.
bit of its job, right? Like, because it reveals all non-troop, non-resource cards from the hand and allows you to discard one. That being said, now Frexerik knows that all of the cards that Fridge had up until that point were troops or resources.
So while it didn't get rid of a card, he does know that there at that time at least no counter magics, no verdicts, nothing to stop this rain of boxes. Solitary Exile on an Eldritch Dreamer. Fridge shaking his head, going, "Ah, he knows." At least
Uh,
that's what I assume. I'm just putting it. I know, like on Fridge stream, you can actually hear what he's saying. But between that, the Angel of Dawn that Frexerik just ripped off the top, played for free, which allowed him to also play Solitary Exile. I mean, that's Angel of Dawn's power. When you're not in a top draw, play, go situation, getting that for free is always good. Then again, this is ideal for Mono Sapphire. Or Sapphire decks in general, as Buccaneer, Time Ripple, returns that back to hand and it turns a free card into, oh, I can't play it until I get to 6 resources. And again, Frexerik was already at 5, so cards with Angel of Dawn's power level were already able to be played.
this is true. Of course, the longer they're not swinging, the better for a Mono Sapphire player.
And the more he can get these Buccaneers out, that there is a threat of that Soul Marble with 5 counters there. If that Buccaneer wasn't a thing, he might have played. Well, he can't replay the Angel without a resource, but had that been an option, he may have done it. But it looks like there isn't another option, so counters going down onto the Soul Marble up to 10. Will we see armaments or will we see cavalry? I believe armaments.
Yeah,
Oh,
it really
I'm
depends on
wrong.
what. Yeah, it's cavalry. It really depended if Frexric had anything in hand that he could have played out next turn, like another Vampire King or whatnot. You'd expect the armaments here, but we see the Soul Cavalry hits the board,
The Angel
gets
of
the.
Dawn may be his only troop at the moment, so
Actually, that Angel of Dawn probably was worth the armaments here, but we see cavalry anyway. It gets the life drain, brings Frexric up to a solid 26. Now, Frexerik's race is against whatever Fridge can produce, and he does have a 6/6 steadfast spell shield troop on the board, but no matter how powerful it is, it can never block that Eldritch Dreamer. Blood Diamond, of course, has tons of ways of dealing with Eldritch Dreamer, but we already see 2 boxes on the board, 2 Solitary Exiles out of hand, and we know one of the cards in Frexerik's hand is that Angel of Dawn, so there is some measure of not wanting Fridge to start drawing cards here. You would be afraid of him, of a Mono Sapphire player drawing into answers for a Soul Cavalry, which they do have a few of.
the other thing is that Soul Cavalry can't be answered by a lot of things in Mono Sapphire. Time Ripple, Buccaneer, can be exhausted by
Grolk.
cer- by Grolk and Stormcall. I'm waiting to see if that interesting thing we just saw drawn gets played.
Almost certainly it will be here. It really depends on what card is pulled. Like a Mastery of Time would change this up, I suppose. Oh.
It's almost as if you're psychic.
So this does give Fridged options here. He might want to hold on to what he's got. He puts a worker bot down onto the board. He knows if he puts that Angel of Dawn back into hand, he's buying himself another turn. But every turn that Soul Cavalry swings, at least for the next turn, is going to be another 6 health swing. And health is a deciding factor in this matchup if you look at it. Frexerick at 29 doesn't really fear anything coming out onto the board. And we do see Splinter of Azathoth hit the board and is going to sit there. It won't stop any of the troops coming onto the board, but. And now we see actually a huge
Couldn't
mistake.
you could have
Uh,
interrupted that, yeah, and put that back in
yeah,
his hand.
yeah. Could have used his opponent's. We see the reaction from Fridge on. He's freaks out noticeably. Uh, Oh, could have used the one shot ability of Splinter of Azathoth to stop that Angel of Dawn from hitting the board.
So in case it's not a commonly seen card. So Splinter of Azathoth, you can it's 2 cost. It interrupts a card, but that card goes back into its controller's hand. So
Well, that certainly makes things better for Fridged.
yeah, it's interesting. He does have 35 health to eat through, though. Soul Cavalry and Dimid being best buds in this case. That's actually a very good reason to go Soul Cavalry, particularly with Dimid. 6 health is a huge chunk. And not very many things, unless you have an actual board, can stop 6/6, especially when you can't target it with murder or anything like that. And Sapphire does not have a method of gaining health.
Yeah,
Not
not
usually, at least.
nothing springs to mind. Nothing that would be uh very versatile here.
So it looks like we are in do what we can mode, Mastery of Time, and Buccaneer.
Yeah, Fridge probably looking just to try to find another answer, like trying to get that other Angel of Dawn out of the way, maybe the Soul Cavalry. I'm not sure if he has Grolks or whatnot to deal with, but they could certainly alter the board here.
Yeah,
So
Azathoth can't attack without dying. Buccaneer can't either.
we see we see Fridge basically just playing for time here. He's got to keep drawing cards, but he keeps finding resources, especially in a mono sapphire deck when your champion is very much based around like a single interaction. Like the worker bots are a good distraction. They're a fantastic like board clogger, but they don't do you anything. Like they block once or they become something with Reese. That's it.
Yeah. Other than that, like right now, had that champion been Wyatt the Sapper, that's 2 extra cards, and that could be game changing. You draw a finite number of cards, and like, who's to say that the 2 cards underneath that Sapphire set that was just drawn were amazing things that can help Fridge out of the situation? But you build a deck around a certain interaction. Reese is a powerful one. Getting extra Reese bots we saw in game 1 was very good. This game, not so much.
Yeah. Not to take away from Bertram's charge power by any stretch of the
Oh
imagination.
no,
Like it's still incredibly powerful and has actually stopped 12
18
damage.
damage.
Is it 18 now?
This will be the
Well,
third
yeah,
block of the worker bot.
yeah. This will be the 18th. So that's a ton of damage to have prevented. In fact, it keeps Fridged in this game, but it's
It's not
hard
quite
to.
enough right now. It's Soul Cavalry being a 6/6. Sapphire has to like he has the option to triple block here. He has the
He
option to triple block here.
does
He
have
just
the option to
optimized it.
triple block, but the murder blowout is unreal. And Fridge knows he has answers to the murder blowout somewhere. We saw them in game 1. So what he needs to do is find one of those before the situation arises. Here we see him using Splinter Azathoth's power to keep that Angel of Dawn back in hand. He pays 2 resources to send a card that's being played back into his opponent's hand.
Yep,
Uh,
it's stall. It's not true interrupt. It doesn't put it in the graveyard. But in terms of and if your opponent has plenty of resources, it's often a not very useful power. Is you just send it back and make them pay 2 more resources. But in this situation, enough of that has happened where Splinter can actually get its 3 attack in. It can now safely block an Angel if it wants to. Actually, does get Frexerik down to 20 his starting health. So
mm.
he's in an okay situation, not excellent.
And now we see a different choice for Fridged here. He can choose to play. Well, he can choose a lot of things here. He's got a lot of options to
He's
make.
thinking,
Yeah. Specifically, this Vortex he just played is kind of an interesting choice because it does allow him to do other things with his charges next turn. Like, if he wants to put the worker bot down now, he can still make another worker bot next turn.
But Reese still has to bake for 4 turns. So saving that for Reese might be a little bit tough. Oh, an extinction hitting the board. It does mean Soul Cavalry is dead. Actually, would you have attacked with Soul Cavalry first if you were intending to extinction?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mistake a lot of people make when they look at the blocks, and he probably looked at that saying, oh, he'll just chump, so there's no need to do it. But I mean, you probably should throw it in too.
But I'm just imagining. It's like, oh, I drew my extinction finally, and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm sure I will do that, and will continue to do that myself once in a while. Like a little Alucard burst through. It's like, ah, so good, hype, clam. Much love to Alucard, by the way.
Of course. And we see the Angel of Dawn replayed. Now, as long as Frexerik can't answer that Eldritch Dreamer again, Fridged is still not in a
He's still in
horrible
this game.
position. You know, there's a card. We see this Grolk that 4 or 5 turns ago would have been fantastic. Would have cleared the board up. Would have given Fridged a turn or two to avoid the life drain situation. But now he's just looking at slowing down one Angel of Dawn, which is still fine. It'll slow it down this turn and allow him to get 2 more damage through next turn, but, you know, it's a little bit late for that Grolk.
You can almost make an argument that you could save it for the next turn. There is a second angel that's able to be played. Pact of Pain, though.
Oh, Pact of Pain is dangerous.
While Frexerik doesn't have the giant health buffer he had before, it's still enough to gain 2, 3-ish cards safely.
Well, it's also interesting to note that he's using that ability right now twice on his own turn. So he was looking for something specific. I have to assume he was. Now, an interesting thought is if you use Pact of Pain on your opponent's turn, you do gain access to the possibility of playing an angel for free, and we know there should still be angels available for Frexerik. So, we'll see what happens. So we see 1 card draw for Fridge. We see the second one off the Dreamer now. Probably about the best he could hope for right there. One of the reasons to have held this Crackling Vortex for so long now is just in case he gets a Stormcloud. Now, there's a couple of good Stormlings here. He wants Splashies or Thunder Puffs. Gets 1 Thunder Puff. Splashy, of course, would have been a little more ideal. Perhaps that's just my opinion.
Well, drawing cards is always good. But being able to stop an attack is fine. The 2 damage, maybe not so much, but... And here, Thunder Puff is going to be useful, though, as Life Drain on Angel of Dawn. Yeah, he will use it right now. To exhaust the Angel of Dawn so Life Drain doesn't happen, that health buffer has been reduced. It was at 35 at some point. Frexerik now at 6 health. Forcing that into extinction. Definitely not bad.
I think if this was me here, I would use my Biddy Bolt to kill my Menacing Grolk. Just for swag points.
I can certainly understand the swag points. I mean, you got the ability, why not use it?
Absolutely.
So the board has again changed. Now it is...
It's kind of it's a dangerous spot because that Pact of Pain is still on the board. That's the huge thing. Even Reese might be too slow here. There's only 3 and 34, 35 or so robots that can deal with a troop in the sky. Now, as far as robots go, Experimental Warhawk might have been good enough.
This is
We'll s-
interesting. Attacking with a Reese, obviously, obviously Frexerik will take that block and almost
yeah.
has to. Going down to 2 is dangerous, especially that experimental Warhawk on the board with Crush and the ability to increase its attack. But in fact, Frexerik is not going to get another chance to do it. He's got plenty of resources. He only has to do 6 damage. It costs 6 resources to get +3 attack. Reese's brother Reese enters hand. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter that I just named that card, but
Yeah,
he's
I actually don't think Fridge cares. He's streaming without a delay and without a handguard. We were being
see,
safe about
here's
his
that
hand.
swag. Why only pump it 3 times when you can pump it 7?
Yeah, there's no one resource card that would save the day here. So we see, well,
Reversion.
reversion would reversion would in fact be a hilarious blowout at this point. Um, that being said, with that top deck Mastery of Time on the turn before, there was no losing play once the Experimental Warhulk was the card created by Reese. Because had the block not gone through, then the crush damage would have easily been enough with after Mastery of Time, and also you'd have had 2 troops swinging. And even if he does make the block, then we see what happens. So, barring some very extreme situations with reversion, Fridge comes out of that pretty clean. 2-0s hit the round, and with 22 minutes left, I have to wonder if we're able to find another game.
Go ahead and